Hello everyone, welcome to our series on environment, and let's continue as to where we left yesterday. So yesterday I was discussing that the aim of the biosphere reserves is to establish a scientific basis for enhancing relationship between man and environment, between humans and environment. And it is also called as it is an intergovernmental and scientific program because it adopts the scientific principles of sustainable development. We use data collection, like consider for instance we do data collection, data analysis. So all of this data collection of with regards to the species available in a particular area or species migration based upon the climate change. This is all comes under the environmental data. I mean, we can also mention here the air quality index, the quality of the soil available, along with this, all of this, because sustainable development is a scientific principle, the data collection, data analysis, all of that has to be done once they get the data with regards to the availability of species, with regards to the availability of migration based on climate change. So they have to adopt certain practices in order to mitigate that climate change so that they can protect the species, they can participate in biodiversity conservation. You see, when you do biodiversity conservation, you need to study in detail with regards to the breeding or the conservation breeding, you can say. So the conservation practices have to be studied in detail. Okay, like if species are surviving or conserving in the natural habitat, but if they are near to extinction, you need to put them in captivity or in zoos, and for that a certain scientific research is required. As consider for instance, we studied in the Great Bustard Recovery Project, they do scientific research. So all of this is, the very one of the major key role of the establishment of the biosphere reserves in the man and biosphere program, is to follow sustainable development, in the sense, I mean to say that one of the key initiatives of the man and the biosphere program is the establishment of biosphere reserves. So within biosphere reserves, they follow this principle of sustainable development. You are trying to meet your own needs without compromising the ability of future generations with regards to that, compromising the resources for its usage for the future generations. Okay, so consider for instance in transition zone, they do, as I have discussed yesterday, ecologically sustainable activities. So ecologically sustainable activities, when they do this, what happens? As consider for instance, if they are doing organic farming, okay, that means they're getting a source of livelihood, that means their economic needs are being met. So now they feel a sense of ownership towards that particular area and they try to conserve the environment. That means their economic needs are met, they're being developed, at the same time they're trying to conserve the environment. Since they're using organic farming, so their new usage of pesticides, so obviously the environmental quality, the environment will be better. So this is an example of sustainable development, because you are developing, you're economically developing, the usage of the resources of land, the environment as a whole. You're trying to utilize the water, the land. At the same time, since you're not using any harmful chemicals over here, the future generations can use it, right? You're trying to make it available for the future generations also. Okay, so ecologically sustainable activities around socio-cultural activities are also allowed. So it's when we are saying that its aim is to establish a scientific basis for enhanced relationship between humans and environment. See here what happens. The relationship between humans and environment is clearly visible. They feel that sense of ownership. At the same time, people also feel a sense of responsibility to conserve the environment. So they need to be understood about the impact of the sustainable development practices. And when you provide them with the data with regards to the sustainable development practices, how it is going to have a positive impact on the climate or positive impact on the ecosystem as a whole, when you try to make them understand how it is going to create healthy ecosystems, okay, because we are trying to create healthy ecosystems, providing them alternate sources of livelihood. So at the same time, you provide them, when you give them this along with organic farming, you can also write agroforestry also. So you try to make them understand the impact of climate change on, how it is going to impact the ecosystems. So disasters do happen, right? So all of this, you try to back it with scientific data. You try to provide them case studies as to where in fragile ecosystems, if people are not following sustainable development practices, or if people are or not trying to conserve the particular environment in which they're trying to live, how it is causing a damage to the environment. That is like a case study. Or the increased frequency of floods, okay, in Kerala is one of the best examples of this. It is like a case study. The case study is the data collection, all of that is a scientific basis. One of the best example is the environmental impact assessment, you can see. So in biosphere reserves, they are like living laboratories. You do all kinds of research. You try to understand the impact of humans and environment, on the impact of environment on humans, and how negative impacts can be reduced if not people are not utilizing the resources properly. So in case of environmental impact assessment, you evaluate it basically. So when you try to construct any projects, infrastructure related projects and all, you try to do an environmental impact assessment. So also with regards to the about when you say land usage patterns, if they are changed, if you're trying to convert more land into agriculture, what impact it is going to have on the climate, and you try to back it with data. You try to introduce some sensors, remote sensing data, so that when you try to understand, about the understand with some technology, you try to understand about the pollutants when more land is being converted for the purpose of agriculture or for the purpose of industries. And also you back it with certain data. If land usage patterns, if they're trying to use, instead of deforestation, if they are following the principle of afforestation, you give them the you try to get the data of the pollutants, how positive impact is going to be created on the environment as a whole. So all of this, in a way, when you back it with data, when you do the analysis as to how it is going to impact, all of this is going to act like a proof and try to enhance the relationship between humans and environment. Because when they understand the negative consequences of environmental degradation with case studies, data collection, data analysis, they try to have the sense of responsibility and ownership to protect the environment. So biosphere reserves are one of the best examples, because when we are seeing that ecologically sustainable activities are taking place in transition zone. And also one of the best example is we are allowing within the buffer zone, we are allowing the research, we are allowing the training of the people, we are trying to create awareness through education, we are trying to create awareness, the training of personnel. At the same time, when we are allowing research, that means biosphere reserves are like living laboratories, you can say. You try to implement a sustainable development practice, as for example agroforestry or organic farming. You try to promote the local livelihoods through their handicrafts and all, and then you try to understand how it is going to create a positive impact. That means it is a scientific basis for enhancing the relationship between humans and the environment. Some people might have that emotional connect with the environment, some may feel responsibility towards the environment. So you try to understand in a holistic perspective. You try to understand with regards to the species availability and migration, that is like biological data. When you're trying to study the conservation practices, when you're trying to understand the emotional connect, that represents the social nature. And when you try to understand it, the environmental impact assessment, that is you're trying to understand from an environmental point of view, ecological point of view. So ecological, biological, at the same time the social level. All of this is like a scientific basis. It is a scientific program. You all do all that. At the same time, when you say socio-cultural activities within the transition zone, their traditional festivals, their local handicrafts, as I have just mentioned. All of this represents the socio-cultural activities. The traditional festivals represent socio-cultural activities. They need to be socially collaborating for the purpose of preparing these handicrafts and all. All of these are available, allowed within the transition zone. And all this is for better understanding only. This gives you better analysis actually. No bits are though directly asked from this scientific basis and scientific program. This is extremely important for the purpose of analysis, okay, of a topic. And there are in total 18 biosphere reserves in India. And within these 18 biosphere reserves, 12 are recognized under the Man in the Biosphere program. Okay. So within this, we have this Nanda Devi. Every day I'll discuss one biosphere reserve under the Man in the Biosphere program, irrespective of the topic that we are going to discuss. This Nanda Devi is surrounded by the Rishi Ganga Valley on the west and the Gori Ganga Valley on the east. It is the second highest peak in India. And the Nanda Devi National Park, surrounding this Nanda Devi peak, is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Recognized in year 1988. So it is a part of the Garhwal Himalayas in Chamoli district of Uttarakhand. So when you say Nanda Devi, it basically translates to the bliss or joy giving goddess. Okay. In Sanskrit, Nanda means joy or bliss. And she is considered the daughter of the Himalayas. Nanda Devi is considered the daughter of the Himalayas in Indian folklore. You see, and also she is considered the patron goddess. That means the protector. Patron means in general sense the protector of a particular place, a person is considered as patron. Patron goddess of Garhwal and Kumaon Himalayas. So people believe that she is a protector of that people living in that particular area, protector of that particular place. This is why we say that biospheres also have a cultural significance. So I'll discuss the rest in tomorrow's class. Thank you. Stay tuned for more updates.